Hi, good afternoon, and thanks for joining our web presentation today, The Secret to a Highly Resilient AWS Environment. My name's Will Smith. I'm the Director of Sales at N2W Software.
I'm Ezra Charm, Director of Marketing. Thanks for joining us today.
To jump in, resilience, just a quick definition here, the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties or toughness, and the ability of a substance or object to spring back into shape or elasticity.
Just to define resilience, it's like it says on our shirts here, it's not how hard you fall, it's how quickly you can bounce back up. So to bring you a sports analogy, it's the good players are the ones that can take a hit and then jump back up and continue playing as if nothing happened. And that's what we want out of AWS. We want the ability, we can't really control the things we can't control. So at least we want to know that when those things happen, we can bounce back really quickly.
So just a quick overview of what's going on throughout our web presentation. Why backing up AWS obviously is so important. Some of the native objects, enterprise solutions out there, a little bit into disaster recovery, and then we'll go into a bit of a demo and some Q&A at the end. So why back up AWS? Obviously with your EBS volumes, you really want to block devices used for persistent storage, automatically replicate within its availability zone, high availability, durable, scalable, that sort of thing.
So these are all features of what we're working with in AWS. So we're working with these EBS volumes, and they're selling us a great product. They're available in all different regions around the world. They're durable, which means we can write and overwrite them, beat them up quite a bit. They're scalable with a click of a mouse, not like our traditional data center where you got to invite guys with hard hats every time you want to scale your data center. So we're dealing with a great product. So I guess the question becomes, why do we need to back up this great product? And here's kind of our answer. It's to prevent data loss. So outages, hardware, humans. We all know the recent case that AWS had where just a simple typo can bring down a region for a couple of hours.
Yep, and obviously disasters that aren't foreseeable. And ransomware is a big thing we hear a lot from customers lately. It's becoming more and more of a security issue, so you definitely want to have something in place to protect yourself from that.
Definitely, and we don't want to plan like what Dilbert has going on, where if something goes wrong and we just sit there and scream for help. So we want something a little bit more concrete, something that we can script and test. And by script, I mean not necessarily write a script, but just something that we can run through in disaster scenarios. So the native options, what are we working with? I guess is another continuation of the EBS volume. So we're working with snapshots. That's what AWS provides to us to be able, and to you, to be able to perform these backups. Snapshots are a great product. They're block level, which means that they're taken right from the volume. And so they're OS independent. It doesn't matter what kind of operating system is running. They're also incremental. So anytime we take a snapshot, it's only taking the differences since the last snapshot was taken. So it's a very efficient kind of backup method. And it has some other really cool features built into it, like lazy loading and copy on write. Lazy loading means that I don't have to wait for a volume to fully load when I'm doing a restore. As soon as it becomes available, AWS will go and load information that you're querying first and lazily load the rest of the volume in the background. So we can really recover very fast using snapshots. And obviously it's crash consistent, and there's some automation features like a CLI available as well.
Yep. And in addition to just native, obviously, you've got your own internal scripts, and there's cloud automation tools as well.
And a cloud automation tool would be like anything that you can say, you want to schedule your backups. And if you're using scripts to perform these backups, a cloud automation tool can be really helpful. It can say, I want you to go and fire off this script once a day or every 5 minutes or however often you want. And it's a reasonable method of automating, AWS snapshots. In-house scripts, the custom scripts, they have their own problems. You have maybe one guy on the team that's really good at scripting, and he likes to put a drop dead date in his scripts just in case he finds a better position. And so it's not really a good thing to rely on the enterprise level.
Yeah, and with a lot of different admins, if somebody's out that day or they're not sure what's going on with those, you can have your difficulties.
There's a little bit too much human factor in the scripting. Yeah.
And just to get into enterprise class backup and recovery, obviously you'd want to have the user management, multiple accounts, instances, policies is a big one, schedules, just making sure everything has automation, reporting and alerting on what's going on, and having a dashboard to give you a clear indication of what's happening in your environment.
And I think when we're talking about resilience, you want something that, especially on the enterprise, where more than one person can adopt this product, learn it, understand it, learn the process, run through the disaster scenario, so that again, that one guy is out, you're not waiting for him to return before you can get your production environment back up and running. So I guess to when we're thinking about what's real resilience, it might be something like an enterprise class solution that something the entire organization can kind of adopt and learn. And yeah. So when you're talking about enterprise class backup, there's some common terms that are discussed, like recovery point objective, recovery time objective. So recovery point is how often are you taking these backups? So if you're using a solution, how do we minimize data loss? Because that's resilience also. It's about how fast you're going to pop back up after taking a hit. So if you pop back up but you're missing a leg, you're not that resilient. So we don't want to have data loss when we implement a solution. We want something where we can really minimize the amount of data that gets lost. And we also want something that obviously is instantly recoverable. We want complete and full recovery. We want also something that may be application aware, where I can quiesce an environment, get it ready for a backup to be performed. So all these things are kind of more on the enterprise class side, more of what I would expect in a really resilient solution.
Just to get into a little bit more, with disaster recovery, obviously automated transfer of all backup data within the AWS cloud. And like we were talking about earlier, with a region going down, it's important to, across geographical regions or between different accounts, have that.
That's your ransomware scenario, is where maybe I can copy critical snaps to a separate AWS account that acts as like a snapshot vault. It's really secure. And these might be what you would see in a enterprise class plus solution. Mm-hmm. So this is, getting to really true resilience. We would have, monitoring, reporting, logs, alerts.
And that's important even in an on-prem environment, to know what's going on, to get alerts for changes, simple reports and logs of what's going on.
And I like an alert that says, hey, nothing is wrong today. That's good. That's the best kind of alert. But, with your homegrown scripts, you may not be able to get that visibility. Like, are you sure your backups are happening on a recurring basis? So if we really want resilience, we want that reassurance. We want a finger to point at if things go wrong.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Integration options, AWS services, third-party monitoring or logging tools. When we say highly secure, it's deployed in the customer's own account, encryption, access management, and authentication. So that's important. And just ease of use, simple and easy. Nice browser interface, deployed in minutes. Very, very low.
Very low maintenance. Yeah, low maintenance. Just something again that the entire organization can center around and adopt as the solution. And this takes it kind of to the next level of what we might see in an enterprise class, highly resilient environment. Aside from the things we've been mentioning so far, you may have like real flexibility for backing up production environments. So, in the traditional data center, something like every 15 minutes is a common recovery point objective. So you're never losing more than 15 minutes of data. But because of the beauty of how quickly snapshots can happen, we can even narrow that down a whole lot more with AWS, maybe even get you something like every 5 minutes or even more often than that. We also might want to see instant recovery of multiple machines at once. So, this is something you could potentially script, is say you're running 300 EC2 instances. Be really great if we could click a button and recover 300 at once instead of one at a time. This way, if your entire environment goes down, you have a real quick solution to that. And taking that even further, you may have further automation, an API or a CLI utility, resource scanning, looking at your account, finding resources that don't have policies applied to them, applying them automatically. And again, more on application consistency, just making sure that whatever you're running in your production environment, you can take snapshots of it, even in production without downtime. And kind of the beauty of what AWS offers in snapshots is they happen so quickly that if you were quiescing a production environment, you could quiesce the environment, take the snapshot, restart the environment, and that span of time takes 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds. So there's literally no downtime, no pending transactions are lost. They may just hang for a second or two and then get processed through. And you may even see something like Microsoft VSS support in the solution as well. And we've mentioned this word a couple of times, but quiesce is to pause or alter a device or application to achieve a consistent state. And this is something that's very common in production backups, and something that we can bring to AWS as well. And obviously, we're heading in a certain direction. So let's see what we're talking about here.
Yeah, well, we've obviously been kind of pushing towards the usefulness of an enterprise class solution. And we happen to offer one. Cloud Protection.
See that coming.
You didn't see that coming?
No.
Cloud Protection Manager is our in-cloud backup recovery and disaster recovery, for your Amazon EC2 environment. So it's really giving you that what you have with your on-premises enterprise backup capabilities into the cloud. So it's going to integrate with Amazon snapshots, which is nice. And other service really to offer seamless and automated backup solution for your production environment.
And we talked about how powerful snapshots are, how they happen quickly. They're an efficient form of backup, and just taking that native capabilities that AWS offers, the things like copy on write and lazy loading and all these very cool features in the snapshot backup, and building an enterprise solution around it obviously has a lot of appeal, and we can't wait to show you that.
Yeah. So a little bit about N2W, founded in 2012, and really we're the leading in-cloud backup recovery and disaster recovery solution for AWS. So primarily used to back up your virtual servers and supports other services as well, RDS, Redshift, quite a few others as well. And we leverage the AWS native virtual disk or EBS volume snapshots. So it's agentless virtual backup appliance, and it's deployed right through on the marketplace where you can search for it. It's secured in the AWS environment, so it's not SaaS. And like I said, it's right there on the marketplace for direct sales for large enterprises.
Awesome. And I think we're going to jump to a demo now. Let's just make sure. Yep. And so we're going to show you a little bit of our solution, how you can get it, and if not, take some questions towards the end here. So I'm just going to switch gears here and bring up our solution. And so, first of all, you can find us in the AWS Marketplace. We have a free version available, free trial, fully functional free trial. We also have a couple of paid products. You can look us up by just searching in the Marketplace for N2W software. And when you grab one of these AMIs, these Amazon Machine Images, it actually runs inside your AWS environment as an EC2 instance. So when we mentioned on the previous slide that we're not SaaS, this is an on-premise service, something that you install within your environment. No data gets transferred over the wire and sent back to us or anything like that. What we're doing is we built that automation on top of snapshots and included all those features we mentioned on all those other slides so that you can have an on-premise cloud backup solution. So to access Cloud Protection Manager, you access it through any browser. And you can see in my case, I just have it accessed through a public IP. Doesn't necessarily have to be the way you access it. We support proxies, all different methods. But you can see in this case, in the AWS, I'm in the Cloud Protection Manager console here. And broken out into tabs, I have my backup monitor. This is showing me all my backups that happened, when they happened. I have all the different policies that I'm managing and the schedules as well. But I'm going to take you through a little bit of the product, show you some of the features we talked about in the slide deck here. So the first thing I want to show you is that this product is built for multi-tenancy, not just if you're a service provider, but even if you're an organization where you're managing multiple AWS accounts, which seems to be pretty commonplace. There's not just a single AWS account managing everything. So you can see here, I can add multiple AWS accounts. I can designate if this is a backup account or a DR account. So a backup account is just regular snapshots that are taking place. A DR account is that scenario where you want to protect yourself from ransomware or other malicious activity, somebody getting root access to your AWS account. So you can designate a DR account or a snapshot vault, where we're going to take the most important snapshots and kind of store them in that secure environment. I can also authenticate using assume roles, which is the recommended method for cross-account federation, things like that. And there's a lot of automation in here. So I can enable something called scan resources and scan regions. What that's going to do is, Cloud Protection Manager supports tagging. So I can use a custom tag. And when I have scan resources enabled, we'll go ahead and on a periodic basis, scan your account, look for that tag, and then add it to the corresponding policy. So that if you're spinning up EC2 instances that are not part of a policy, or you're spinning them up on the fly, which quite a, the dynamic environment of AWS is pretty attractive. Here you have a method of automatically adding those instances that don't exist at the moment to a policy. So dynamically adding them to policies as time goes on. I can also manage multiple users. So again, this is something that the entire organization can center around. And we have regular users where I can just fill out some information for them, and I can designate the number of accounts and number of instances that user can back up. And again, that's for licensing purposes. But aside from a regular user who may have full access, we also have a concept of delegates. A delegate is a user that can only perform actions within CPM. They are not managing any AWS accounts or EC2 instances, but I want to delegate access to this user to either perform recoveries or change accounts or change backups or all of those. So this way you really have a good method of separating roles and giving people access that they need to. So if you want a user who can only perform a recovery in certain instances, you can definitely set that up. After I'm done adding my users and my accounts, I can go and start building policies. And the policies are kind of the core to the product. So we'll just run through this very quickly here. So you can see here I have a policy. If I'm going to create a new policy, I just give it a name. I can then apply a schedule to it once I have schedules created as well. And I can designate the number of generations to save. And this is our retention. So we have the ability to retain snapshots longer than the defaults in AWS. So you can set your retention policy to meet whatever compliance initiatives you have. So if you have an initiative like, hey, you got to take a backup every 5 minutes, every week, every month, and every quarter, and retain those for different intervals, you can very easily build that out here. Yeah. After I'm done defining my policy, I can then define my backup targets. That one has no targets at the moment. So my backup targets basically tell me what this policy is backing up. And in this case, you can see it's an EC2 instance, a Linux machine. If I click on add instances, I can add other instances. I can even back up the CPM server itself. And there's a lot of use cases for having a backup of your actual backup server. So we can also back up volumes, RDS databases, Aurora clusters, and Redshift clusters. And I mentioned tags. So you can see that I have a policy called monthly here. Let's just make sure you can see that monthly I'm backing up my CPM server. And this policy is driven by tags. So when I jump into my EC2 console here, you can see that my CPM server has a tag, a CPM backup tag that says monthly. I just want to show that column. Give me 1 second. Just move this over. So if it has a tag in it that says monthly, it'll automatically be added to that policy. So if I spin up another instance now and I apply that monthly tag, it'll be added to the monthly policy just automatically. So after I define my backup targets, I can then jump into more options. And here's where I can perform quiescence. This is where I can supply backup scripts for whatever application I'm running. We have a whole script repository that we can share with you, and you can go and take a look at different scripts available. And yeah, this is the ability to perform application consistent backup on production environments. I can also define a DR policy. So we talked about DR a little bit so far, but here we're going to jump into it a little bit more. So in this case, my DR policy might be, every 5 backups. Let's say these are happening, daily. So, every 5 days, I want to copy all the I want to copy that snapshot to another region. So this will allow me to have automated cross-region backup. If AWS has some kind of region outage, you can really snap back, and we're going to show you that in just a bit. You can recover quickly to another region with really minimal downtime, really giving you that resilience. Aside from cross-region backup, we can also do cross-account disaster recovery. So here, again, that use case for ransomware, if somebody gets root access to your account and is maliciously deleting snapshots, we can be protected from that. We can have that snapshot vault account, and in this case, every 5 backups, copy a snapshot to a super secure account that maybe only 1 or 2 people have access to. And ransomware comes along, anything like that, you're protected. So it's really good to know, a really important piece of resilience. And after we're done defining our policy, we'll jump into our schedules. And you can see that I have schedules here ranging from every 5 minutes to weekly to monthly to daily. So you can really build out whatever initiative you have for backups. You can build it out in Cloud Protection Manager. So as often as every 5 minutes, and then mix that with a weekly and a quarterly with all different retention policies. So you can have the same exact configuration you had in your traditional data center, and maybe even with a narrower recovery point objective. So, something more often than every 15 minutes, like you see in this case, we have every 5 minutes. And when you define a schedule, very easily defined from minutes to months. So really easy to put together, something that anybody on the team can definitely pick up and figure out. So let's take a look at some recoveries now. So we've done our backups. Now let's look at what happens when we need to recover from a disaster or a typo or whatever the scenario is. So we have this backup. Looks like it happened at about 9:30 this morning. First of all, I can see the backup log. This is going to show me if I'm performing that quiescence or I have a more complicated backup scenario. And by the way, aside from the scripts, we also have a thin backup agent for Windows, so and full support for VSS. That's important to mention. So you can quiesce. We have native support for Windows, but then we support backup scripts for your Linux machines. So in here, I can see the backup log. I can see what happened when this snapshot was taken. And then we're going to jump into recover now. I'm just going to hit on recover. And you can see when I'm performing a recovery, I can recover just the instance, the volumes, or explore that volume for specific files and folders that I may want to restore. So we'll start off with an instance recovery. Just click on instance. And we're going to recover from the snapshot itself. And not going to do anything fancy here. I'm just going to free up the IP address in this case, because that IP is being used by the live instance at the moment. And I'm just going to click on recover. And we're just going to get a confirmation that the recovery has started. And that's it. So you can see overall 1 instance was launched, and it actually gives me the instance ID, so I can go back into my EC2 console, and I can refresh here, and I can find that ID. And I didn't mention before, but we had 2 machines running. This is the machine we just performed the recovery on. We had 2 machines running, and I just put them in a stop state just so we could simulate a recovery. And now, I was hoping it would take a little bit longer so we had time to talk, but you can see that my recovered instance right here is already up and running. So like literally a couple of seconds, we clicked the button, the screen did something, and now we're back up and running. And that's real resilience, because we didn't really have to go through anything fancy, produce any scripts, anything like that. We click the button and we're back up and running. And that's really good to know that that capability is there. So aside from recovering the instance, the other thing you might want to consider is recovering just the volume. There's different use cases for this. Obviously, the full instance recovery is the most common use case, but here we have some cool functionality where I can switch out the attached volume for the recovered one, or I can switch out and delete the old ones, or I can choose to not attach it to an instance, or I can choose a different instance to attach it to. So really, whatever your scenario is, we would be able to help you with that as well. So I'm just going to jump back, and now we're going to look at file level recovery. And in this case, what we're actually doing is we're mounting the instance to the CPM server itself, and then allowing you to browse through the files and folders on that instance using a UI. And what this allows you to do is, it's not full file level recovery because you can't send the file back to the live instance. There's some I guess, concerns with enabling that functionality, but at least you can browse through the volume, you can download the files locally to your machine, and then you can use a CLI or something like that to send it back to the production machine here. So you can see any of these files that I need, if it's important files or something like that, I can just download them locally and get previous versions of them. And obviously, using the delegate scenario, you can enable other folks on the team and produce kind of a self-service for file level recovery so that, you know, as administrators, we don't have to sit there performing file level recovery day in, day out, because that could be time consuming and kind of annoying as well.
Expensive for help desk.
Expensive as well. That's definitely a good point. So we have anything from instance to volumes to individual file level recovery available, all with just a click of a button. And obviously, you know, if you're performing recovery on multiple machines at once, or that, you know, huge production environment, there's a CLI available. You can, you know, put together some quick commands and perform recoveries on multiple machines, again, with just a couple of clicks here. And so I think that gives you a good enough idea of what we're offering. There's some other features that we can talk about quick. We mentioned that we have an agent for Windows that's available for you. There's also a freezer. What the freezer is the ability to retain a snapshot indefinitely. So when you create a snapshot, by default, it has some retention policies, even if you just do it right from the AWS console. In this case, I can say that, you know, I need this snapshot because I performed a recovery from it. And so I don't ever want this thing to get deleted. You can put it into the freezer. And obviously it sounds a little bit like Glacier, because this was actually around before Glacier was publicized. But it's still a snapshot, but it's just being retained indefinitely until you go there and manually delete it. So all of this is controlled. We have a nice backup monitor showing us backups are successful or not. We have tons of reporting available, and support for Amazon SNS. So you can actually get alerts via SNS. You can get daily summaries. You can get just a summary of all of your successful and failed backups, and you can get individual alerts, you know, for any issues that may come up as backups are being performed. There's lots of other reporting available, usage reports, audit reports for all your users, everything that you may have expected in an enterprise solution. And so with that, we're going to switch back to the slides here and just give you some next steps that you can think about, and then take some questions. So first of all, you can find us at n2ws.com. You can also look for us in the AWS Marketplace. Just search for N2W or CPM or Cloud Protection Manager.
And right there, we have a fully functional trial that you can go ahead and try out for yourself. And our contact information, again, I'm Will, and this is Ezra. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. We'd be happy to help.
And those are our direct contact details. And it looks like we have a couple of questions coming in, Will. You want to see if you can read those off that second monitor there? And
I think we touched on this a little bit, but asking if we're able to restore from file level directly onto the client.
So yeah, I did mention that no, because, you know, there's some implications with sending a file back to a live machine, and especially when you bring in the concept of delegates, where there's other users who are potentially performing file level recovery. And there's just not yet a clean way of doing it. So for now, you can download those files locally, and then you can transfer them back to the production environment as needed.
This is a good one. When N2W backs up my EC2 instance, what is the storage impact against my N2W license model?
So there's no impact against your license model. We should jump to that, and I'm just going to switch screens here one more time. All the snapshots that CPM takes are just AWS snapshots. And when we jump into the snapshots in the EBS store in our console here, you can see which policy took that snapshot, the time it was taken. And by the way, these sizes here are not indicating the snapshot size, that's indicating the volume size. So the snapshots are indeed block level and incremental. So we're only taking the differences every time, and it's really all managed by AWS. What we've done is add that layer of automation, quiescence, all those other cool features that made this snapshot into an enterprise class backup solution.
The next question is, do you have any backup integration with databases like SQL Server?
Absolutely, and we covered that quite a bit. We have an agent for Windows, full support for VSS, and we have a whole bunch of backup scripts available that you can take a look at as well, and we'll share more details on that. Any other questions there, Will?
This one is, I would, AD integration. Yeah, that's very common. We get that question.
Yeah, so that's probably the thing that we're currently missing in an enterprise class solution. But the good thing is the development team tells us that that's about a week or two away. So, that's definitely something that you would expect in enterprise class backup and recovery. Sorry, I'm just putting our contact details back up there. Definitely AD integration is something that I would expect in an enterprise class solution, and that's why it's right around the corner. So that's definitely something that we need to fit in. That last question looks like it's about some of the reporting, and we'll follow up with that user offline and give them more details on where they can pull all the individual reports, but they are there, and that's another area that we're going to make more robust as time goes on. So I guess to close this out, we just want to thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this demo. We hope you take a look at our product in the AWS marketplace, and hope to see you at another event.
Yep. Thank you.